vulnerable children. Today's launch of 211 is another of the agency's innovative programs to ensure every Jamaican, specifically every child, can access the services needed to safeguard our children. And as we go through today, our hope is that you will leave with one message: report child abuse, call 211. Again, report child abuse, call 211. We encourage you all to like and share our 211 logo, and let's make this message viral. You can do so by following us on social media, interacting with us there. We like the engagement, please, and you can do so at CPFSA on IG, Twitter, and also on Facebook. And now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we will hear from Mrs. Rosalie Gage-Gray. I made an error earlier on calling you Mr. I think that was a typo, but you're beautiful in this beautiful jacket, and you've been doing a fantastic work. And we're going to be hearing more from her. She is the CEO of the Child Protection and Family Services Agency. Mrs. Rosalie Gage-Gray.
Our moderator, Ms. Debbie Bissoon, Honorable Favour Williams, MP, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Honorable Robert Nestor Morgan, MP, Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Dr. Grace McLean, Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, Dr. Cassan Troop, Acting Chief Education Officer, members of the CPFSA Executive Management Team and staff, Dr. Kai Morgan, Clinical Psychologist, Superintendent Shand from SISOCA, Mr. Charles Douglas from FLO, as well as other representatives from the Transformation and Implementation Unit at the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Elon Parkinson, Public Relations and Communications Manager at Digicel, representatives of the OUR, our 211 partners, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, young adults, children, members of the media, good evening all. Good afternoon, sorry. The Child Protection and Family Services Agency, CPFSA, in partnership with our parent ministry, Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, are delighted to launch Jamaica's first 24-hour 3-digit hotline to report child abuse that is free from any network. The CPFSA is mandated to provide care and protection for children who are in need or otherwise at risk. In other words, children who are being abused physically, sexually, emotionally, who are being neglected or abandoned, all fall within the remit of the CPFSA. We are guided by the Child Care and Protection Act, and our response is always to act in the best interest of the child. Section 5 of the CCPA outlines the purpose of the Children's Registry, which we now call the National Children's Registry, which is to collect and assess reports of abuse and also to refer those for investigation. The registry was established in 2007, and during this period, reporting were made through landlines and mobile numbers. In 2010, a dedicated email address was added. And further, in 2011, a toll-free line, 888-PROTECT, was created and promoted. Over the period, we recognized that we could no longer rely on these numbers and resources, and so it signaled the need for an emergency number, and discussions then begin with the Office of Utilities Regulation. A dedicated 3-digit number, and you'll hear this number all through the proceedings, 211, was received earlier this year and is being operated by the National Children's Registry since June 2021. One of the benefits of the merger of the Child Development Agency with the Office of the Children's Registry, now the NCR, is that registration officers have been deployed to all 14 parishes of the CPFSA and also at the main center of the NCR. Today we are pleased to report that through this expansion, our services have been more effective as persons can call or walk into any of the offices to make these reports. And once these reports are received, registration officers can directly input these and refer to our officers in the field. On any given day, our team of officers are in the field locating distressed children in dire need of psychosocial intervention. We have seen firsthand children with bruises, severely traumatized and feeling hopeless. When a child presents with these conditions, our course of action is to ensure that this child gets the best care by creating a safe space, utilizing play and art therapy, and creating a care plan that would enable them to live a normal and healthy life. On average, the National Children's Registry received on a monthly basis over 1,200 cases. We saw a reduction during the early days of the pandemic, but we have been receiving steadily over 1,000 cases since June of this year. Our officers can receive calls remotely, which is in keeping with the call center standards. Importantly, we are now able to track the number of calls received on any given day through a call reporting software. This technology is ensuring that all our calls are received, dispatched, and actioned immediately. In rescuing children from abusive homes or environments, we are often met with the notion that we are here to take away the children. The removal of any child from their home into a child care facility for us is a last resort. We believe that children achieve better outcomes in a loving and nurturing environment, and that is in their home environment. It is our hope that no child will be abused. If children are suspected or known of being abused, we are encouraging every neighbor, family member, friend to call 211. Your call can save a child's life. On behalf of the executive management team, we want to thank our telecommunication service providers for assisting with the process of having this 3-digit number operational. To the Office of Utilities Regulation, we appreciate your assistance in getting this number approved for use. We must recognize the Transformation and Implementation Unit within the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service through the IDB ICT expansion project within the CPFSA. The agency is now being modernized, allowing our field officers to input information real-time through the provision of tablets donated under this project. Our officers use the child care case management system, incorporating the social and health management, that is the SOHIMA software, which streamlines services with the child protection sector. SOHIMA is easy to use, configurable, accurate, and reliable case management. UNICEF has also been one of our main partners on this journey of ensuring that we receive and are able to respond to child abuse reports through campaigns and financial contribution, especially when we first set up the 88 Protect line. We encourage our children to report if they are being abused or to report if they know of any of their friends who are being abused. We are finding creative ways to engage our children and have added our child protection mascot, Mr. Protector, who will enhance educational components to teach our children about abuse, how to identify it and how to report it. Easy, call 211. This forms part of our robust public education campaign utilizing various media and this will be rolled out over the next 6 to 12 months. We seek the partnership of every Jamaican to help us with the promotion of measures to prevent, reduce, or eliminate the phenomenon of child abuse. We are grateful to all corporate and individual partners who have answered the call for action and are playing a role in the fight for our children. If you know or suspect that a child is being abused, please make that call. Call 211. Report child abuse, call 211. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rosalie Gage Gray, Chief Executive Officer for the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, for the opening remarks and really a good overview of the mandate of the Child Protection and Family Services Agency. Thanks again, and I must applaud you and the team for doing an amazing job. I know that it is a big task, but I always say, my grandmother reminds me of this sometimes, that God gives the biggest task to his strongest soldiers. And so we're very happy to know that we have an agency that continues to work to protect our children of Jamaica. Again, and I'm going to say it so many times during the course of today's proceeding, that we must report child abuse. call 211. Ladies and gentlemen, I now invite Dr. Kai Morgan, child psychologist, to give his opening remarks.
Maybe soon, Honorable Favor Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Honorable Robert Nestor Morgan, Minister of State, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Dr. Grace McLean, Acting Permanent Secretary, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Dr. Kazan Troop, Acting Chief Education Officer in the same ministry. And I really, all protocols observed, everybody, the children, adults, adolescents, all our partners at this 211 hotline, welcome. I am here really to talk about why it is that this hotline is important and why it is that we call on everyone as civilians, neighbors, friends, etc., family members, to highlight the importance of abuse and what it does to our children. So we are not only talking about saving the physical lives of our children, but we're talking about saving them emotionally as well. And this becomes extremely critical because what is trauma? Trauma is what we're really talking about. And trauma is very broad. It's broad, but it includes exactly what we're dealing with here today, which is all the types of abuse, which includes physical abuse, which includes sexual abuse, which includes emotional abuse, and also neglect. So these are important factors for us to understand, because these things actually cause changes in our brain. And this is really critical for all of us to get. It really causes some major changes in our brain structure, right? This has been shown for the past 20 years with research on trauma. I'm not the only one saying it. There are changes in our brain structure when we have been traumatized. And these changes mean that what we call our thinking brain, the brain that is supposed to be making judgment and decisions and implementing and planning and organizing, are impacted. And the brain that is most at the forefront, the part of our brain that is driving us, is the emotional primitive brain, the brain that was our mainstay when we were little children and we could not, little babies, and we could not manage or deal with much, and we would just cry, right? So we're talking about the impact of these events, of traumatic events on our children. And when I speak of how this impacts us, it is extremely broad. So I'm talking about children with learning issues. Some of the kids that we see at CPFSA are having problems learning. And this is coming from trauma, right? So it affects, again, the way it affects our brain affects multiple things in these children's lives. So we have to think about this when we're thinking about every child that's in danger. So we're talking about, of course, as we said, their physical health, but their emotional health, which also includes the fact that they're more vulnerable and at risk for things like depression, for things like substance abuse, right? So including alcohol, smoking, they're many times more likely to smoke, to drink alcohol, to have depression, to have also physical health problems when they get older, right? So I'm talking about things like hypertension, right? And there have been very clear studies that show the response between heart disease, right? Pulmonary disease, depression, cancer even, right? At higher rates in people that have a history of trauma. So the higher the trauma, the more trauma you experience, the more you're at risk for many of these things, right? Behavioral problems. When we look at children with behavioral issues, they're acting out. They look like they are, as we like to say sometimes, bad pick-me and all of this are rude. This is coming from sometimes their brain that is not developing, the thinking part of their brain that is not developing as we would like it because of the trauma that they have experienced. So really this impact again is wide range, and we all have a responsibility to our children, to our dedication to our children, the future of our nation, to protect them from these kinds of outcomes. Early sexual experiences as well. The more ACEs, the more traumatic experiences that you have, the more likely you are to have early sexual experiences, to initiate them earlier. There's so many things that are aligned to these traumatic events. So I encourage, and I really, really, really recommend that we take this 211 hotline seriously for everybody that is around us, so we can all understand what it is doing to our children in these situations, who are also exposed to other types of trauma that can include, as I said, we have neglect and experiences, different experiences in school, in their communities, etc., that are already putting them at risk for some of these concerns. And that's my appeal today.
Wow. Incredible. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kai Morgan, child psychologist. Really eye-opening presentation. I don't know about you, but I've never heard a lot of the things that were just mentioned by Dr. Kai Morgan about the results of trauma. And no longer are we asked to, get over it. We can do something, and that is exactly what this hotline is about. It's about early intervention. It's about meeting our children and giving them a safety, an outlet where they can report what's happening to them, and so that we can secure them and their future. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we've heard from Mrs. Rosalie Gage-Gray, our Chief Executive Officer. We've heard from Dr. Kai Morgan about the importance of the hotline, but I'm sure, like you, we have our questions about how the hotline actually works. And so at this time, let us watch a process video that explains how 211 hotline operates.
211 is a simple toll-free number. It's easy to remember, and it is free to all callers, whether you're calling from Digicel or from Flow. It is operated on a 24-hour basis, so there's no excuse for not reporting child abuse.
No problem, more than happy to assist you.
When a report is made to 211, our officers are well trained to ask some key questions to determine exactly what is happening to the child. When a report is recorded, it is marked with a case identification number, and the officer does an assessment to determine what is happening to the child, 2, the level of urgency, and 3, what entity is best suited to investigate the matter. Our investigating partners include our own internal investigations unit at the CPFSA, the Office of the Children's Advocate, and a number of units within the Jamaica Constabulary Force. At the CPFSA, the cases are assigned to our investigators within 24 hours. They will then go out into the field to do an assessment to verify whether the allegations in the report are true and what actions are needed to respond to the child who is in need of care and protection.
It is confidential.
You can be guaranteed that every call that comes into 211 is treated as secret and confidential.
I do hope that that video gave you some more information about how 211 operates. And if you do have any more questions, feel free to put them there in the chat, or you can contact the CPFSA and they will be more than happy to give you any additional information that you may require. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, they sit at the helm of making this possible. And so without further ado, I invite the Honorable Robert Nestor Morgan, MP, Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, to give his remarks.
A warm welcome. I would like to recognize the Minister of Education, Youth and Information, the Honorable Favor Williams, also Dr. Grace McLean, Acting Permanent Secretary, and in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Dr. Cassan Troop, Acting Chief Education Officer. Here at the Ministry, Mrs. Rosalie Gage-Gray, Chief Executive Officer of the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, Dr. Kai Morgan, child psychologist, Mr. Charles Douglas, Senior Manager, Regulatory Affairs at Flow, Mr. Eden Parkinson, Public Relations and Communications Manager at Digicel, Superintendent Shand, our very important partner from Stoker, as well as representatives from the Office of Utilities Regulation, Mr. Trevon Brown, who is the National Chairman of the Youth Council of Jamaica, and other youth representatives, partners, Jane Bank, Trend Media, Access Financial Services, NOA, iPrint, Global Media Services, Pizza Printing Solutions, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all persons watching from all across the world. Thank you. The launch of 211, I think, is one of my proudest achievements as a junior minister here in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. And I want to thank Minister Favor Williams for giving me the opportunity to work with a wonderful team at the CPFSA as well as the other teams here at the ministry, who I am confident have a fundamental appreciation of why what we're doing is so important. When I approached Ms. Gage Gray many months ago as to how can we simplify the ability of children to access a number for them to report whether or not they were being abused, we started a process of contemplating how would it work. I then reached out to the OUR, who advised me that we can get a number, a 3-digit number, to give children access. I must thank the CPFSA and for the work that they have done in collaborating with Flow and Digicel as well as the OUR in order to allow this to happen. I know it was a collaborative effort to get all the regulatory things done as well as all the technical specifications, also in setting up the call center and training the persons. 211 is very important as it is the first 24-hour manned hotline for children to get access to. Why is it important to have a 24-hour hotline? Children are not abused 9 to 5. Many children are abused late at nights, early in the mornings, on the streets, in the evenings, etc. So it is important that children have a quick access to a number which they can use as close to the incident of abuse as possible. Because the longer a child takes to report an abuse, in some cases it's harder for the child to report it or to relive the experience by talking about it. So giving children an easy number to remember. We appreciate the work that 888 Protect has done in the decade that it has been around. But one of the challenges that we've recognized with 888 Protect is that it's sometimes challenging, especially for younger children, to remember how to dial it. So this option gives us a good opportunity to create more access to help for children. The other important point that I wish to raise is that what we're seeking to do is to interconnect what I call the child care ecosystem in Jamaica. So there are a myriad of numbers out there. You have the suicide prevention hotline at the Ministry of Health. You have a number at the Children Advocate Office. You have several other numbers. And what we're trying to do is to interconnect all these numbers where these numbers talk to each other. So if somebody calls 211 and has an issue with suicide, we should eventually be able to just press a button and send them to the suicide prevention hotline. If somebody calls and wants a counseling help, we should be also able to press a number and send them to where they want to go. So it's, yes, the main purpose of it is a child abuse reporting hotline. But if there are other persons who call who need help, children or adults, we must be able to send them to the relevant areas, which is why from the outset, I asked Ms. Gage Gray to create a relationship with all the other numbers out there so that if it is that we need to push it forward to others, we will be able to do so. We will also have a management system that gives us an ability to know and to measure how effective the hotline is. Yet it is easier for children to self-report being abused. It is a toll-free number that everybody can remember. And it is also going to be offering wide services. but we want to continually assess the number to ensure that purpose and effectiveness is being maintained. If a number is there and people call it and they do not get results from using the number, then eventually the credibility of the number will be challenged. So it's very important for us that we have a monitoring mechanism that ensures that the customer service quality takes place. I have called the number to test it and it works. Other members of the public have called me to say that the number works. So I'm very happy about that. Today is also the beginning of one of the most important public education campaigns that the CPFSA has done in a while. And this is to educate as many persons as possible as to the importance of the 211 number, as to how to access it, and raise general awareness about the issue of child abuse within our society. You would recall that over the last several months, there's been heightened media attention on the issue of child abuse. You have heard of cases in Montego Bay, St. James. You have heard of cases in St. Mary, St. Anne, and Clarendon. This is not by accident. Working with the police, working with the CPFSA, and under the direction of Minister Williams, we're spending a lot of time trying to ferret out the incidents of abuse, raise the profile of the issue of abuse in our society, and engage with our partners to bring those who are perpetrators of abuse against children to justice. Ms. Bissoon gave you some numbers as to the amount of calls that the children registry has gotten. And what it says to you is that abuse is a chronic problem within our society. I would suggest that it's probably a pandemic or an epidemic, and it's something that we all must tackle. Places like Kingston and St. Andrews, St. Catherine, Westmoreland, St. James, Manchester are hotspots where children are vulnerable. And it is that for that reason that our education campaign is going to focus, have a laser-like focus on areas like those that where challenges are existing. I want to again thank the partners. I want to thank the OUR, Flow Digital, and all the sponsors who have come on board to make the possibility of this number being live a reality. I want to charge the CPFSA that now that we have had success with 211, it demonstrates to me that you can work much harder on the other things that we have in store. We have the CCPA reforms to come. We have the adoption reforms to come. We have Section 24 to come. We have the 0 to 3 policy to come, and a myriad of other policies, including the grading of our homes and the audits. These are things that are in emergency mode, long overdue. So thanks again to the team at CPFSA for the hard work they're doing. And they say the reward for hard work is more work. Thank you, Debbie, and thanks to everyone for joining.
211 is a simple toll-free number. It's easy to remember, and it is free to all callers, whether you're calling from Digicel or from Flow. It is operated on a 24-hour basis, so there's no excuse for not reporting child abuse.
No problem, more than happy to assist you.
When a report is made to 211, our officers are well trained to ask some key questions to determine exactly what is happening to the child. When a report is recorded, it is marked with a case identification number, and the officer does an assessment to determine what is happening to the child, 2, the level of urgency, and 3, what entity is best suited to investigate the matter. Our investigating partners include our own internal investigations unit at the CPFSA, the Office of the Children's Advocate, and a number of units within the Jamaica Constabulary Force. At the CPFSA, the cases are assigned to our investigators within 24 hours. They will then go out into the field to do an assessment to verify whether the allegations in the report are true and what actions are needed to respond to the child who is in need of care and protection.
It is confidential.
You can be guaranteed that every call that comes into 211 is treated as secret and confidential.
Thank you so much, Minister. Thank you to the Honorable Robert Nesta. Dr. Morgan, Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. He said it best, you know, the gift for great work is really more work, and really the work begins now, because this is when we get to see how many of our children have now found, you know, the courage. And because it has been simplified for them to dial the number, it's 211, it's just 3 digits. How many of our children are in need of help and intervention? Thank you again, Minister, for underscoring the importance of this line for our nation's children, and also giving us really a small insight into the work that went on behind the scenes for us to get to this point where we have this 3-digit number that is available across networks and is also free, absolutely free. So the caller pays nothing at all, and you can call 24 hours of the day. As Minister said, abuse doesn't only happen 9 to 5, it happens many of the odd hours, you know, during the day that we would not expect it. And so we need to ensure that our children have a place of safety that they can call. And so we thank you again, Minister. You've been seeing the video being played, ladies and gentlemen, of the process of how 211 works. And now we have another video that goes into even more explanation.
Since the start of the year, there have been 600 reports of emotional abuse, 1,203 reports of sexual abuse, 1,465 reports of physical abuse, 2,528 reports of neglect. Stop sexual abuse. Stop physical abuse. Stop emotional abuse. Stop child neglect. Report child abuse. Call 211.
It is a phrase that you're going to be hearing from today moving forward every single day, almost on every media outlet that you can think of. It is report child abuse, call 211. It is super important that we all play our role and take on the responsibility that we do have to our nation's children. Ladies and gentlemen, as was said earlier on, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, they have been very instrumental in ensuring that we are here today and ensuring that our children have a line that they can call. And at this moment, it is our pleasure to hear from our Honorable Minister, the Honorable Favour Williams, the Minister of Education, Youth and Information.
Mr. Morgan, our Minister of State, here in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Dr. Grace McLean, our Permanent Secretary Acting, Dr. Kassan Troop, our Chief Education Officer Acting, Mrs. Rosalie Gage Gray, Chief Executive Officer, Child Protection and Family Services Agency, otherwise known as CPFSA, Dr. Kai Morgan, Child Psychologist, and thank you so much, Dr. Morgan, for highlighting to us what happens in the brain when we abuse our children and how that short circuit their capacity to reason. Let me acknowledge as well Mr. Charles Douglas, Senior Manager, Regulatory Affairs at FLO, Mr. Elon Parkinson, Public Relations and Communications Manager at Digicel, Superintendent Sean from SISOCA, representatives from the Office of the Utilities Regulation. Thank you for your help in us getting this number. Mr. Brown, National Chairman, the National Youth Council of Jamaica, and other youth representatives, 211 partners, Jane Bank, Trend Media, Access Financial Services, iPrint, Global Media Services, ISA Printing Solutions, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, children, members of the media. I am delighted to join in welcoming all of you to this official launch of the 211 Child Abuse Helpline. First, may I acknowledge just the dogged determination with which the Minister of State, Honorable Robert Nesta Morgan, who brought greetings just now, the way in which he's pushed to have this service in place. While it has been talked about for some time, his enthusiastic efforts, together with that of the team from the Child Protection and Family Services Agency to get it in place, have helped us to be here finally for today's official launch. I must also acknowledge the very generous support from private sector entities and the Office of Utilities Regulation to activate the 211 number as a singular helpline for children at risk or for anyone to report child abuse. This helpline will be manned 24 hours by child care professionals, as I said in the ad, and it's a significant addition to the overarching system to protect the nation's children. This is the kind of service that we would wish we did not need, but regrettably, child abuse across social strata is a very present danger in Jamaica, and we need to employ all the necessary resources to protect our children, to see to the reduction of these cases in Jamaica. We know that child abuse takes many forms. It can be physical, emotional, sexual, or otherwise. It happens in all countries and in any setting. Globally, it is estimated that up to 1 billion children aged 2 to 17 years have experienced some form of abuse, which has a negative impact on their childhood development. Jamaica's National Children's Registry receives roughly 1,200 reports of child abuse monthly, and this comes in all forms. So over the past 10 years, based on the data that we have, 131,383 reports of child abuse were received by the registry. And in 2021, we have had 7,000 reports. Neglect, behavioral problems, physical and sexual abuse are among the highest. The parishes that stand out in terms of the reports are Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Catherine, Westmoreland, St. Anne, St. James, and Manchester. Over the years, the Child Protection and Family Services Agency has played a critical role in responding to and investigating cases of child abuse across the island. Yet we know from anecdotal reports that many incidents go unreported. Depending on where and when certain acts occur and who the perpetrators are, children are often fearful to report for fear of reprisal. The physical, emotional, psychological toll that the abuse and suffering in silence and in some cases neglect, the toll that that takes on children cannot be calculated. The damage may last a lifetime. It is within this context that the government of Jamaica has been making efforts to secure a 3-digit toll-free number for child abuse reporting, with the hope that more cases of child abuse will be reported, especially by children, if they're being victimized. The ministry and the CPFSA believe it is imperative to have such a number, given the fact that not enough child abuse reports are made by children in Jamaica. As the CPFSA continues to sensitize our children of their rights, it is anticipated that they will become empowered and encouraged to self-report child abuse. The hotline is intended to provide prompt responses to reports of child abuse on a 24-hour basis. It will be manned, as was said earlier, and I repeat for emphasis, by trained persons from the CPFSA. They'll also provide immediate short-term psychotherapeutic response for distressed children who may call for help. The 211 hotline is an easier number for children to self-report if they're being abused. It can be remembered more easily by children when compared to 7 digits or 10-digit numbers. The Child Care and Protection Act stipulates that we all have a legal responsibility to report known or suspected cases of child abuse, ensuring the care and protection of children. persons who fail to act in the best interest of a child or children with respect to exercising care and protection can face a maximum penalty of $500,000 fine or 6 months imprisonment. By way of reminder, reports can be made to 211, of course, or WhatsApp or text 876-878-2882, or can be report at childprotection.gov.jm. Of course, persons can also call or visit any of our parish offices island-wide. Contact information for our locations can be found on our website. And one such is childprotection.gov.jm. And of course, we're active in terms of our social media pages, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. It is important that we recognize that behind the statistics are real children with an individual story. We must help them to break the silence and to use the avenues to speak up. This is especially important given the current COVID-19 situation, where they are most away from school, and an alert guidance counselor may not be able to pick up that something is wrong. Let us all recommit to helping the most vulnerable, younger ones among us. Talk up, speak up, call 211. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you again to the Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information. And it really is a great feat, a great achievement for us as a country, for us prioritizing our children and also ensuring that they have a space, as we've been saying before, over and over again, that they can call an easy 3-digit number that they will remember on any device, any network, at any point at all during the day or the night, that they can call to report child abuse. Thank you again, Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we open the floor, the virtual floor that is, to questions that you may have. Media houses, we're asking that you state where you're from, the company you're representing, and also where or who your question is being directed to. You can raise your hands and we will take the questions as they come in. In the interest of time, we only have time for 5 questions, and we will take them starting now. Do we have any questions, team? Yes? Krista Campbell. Krista, we're trying to bring you up.
Thank you, Debbie. Good day, everyone. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are hearing you, Krista. Krista Campbell, go ahead. TVJ.
Yes, I'm from TVJ News. All right, I want to say congratulations to all involved in this worthwhile venture. And my question has to do with the teeth of the law. Now, Minister Favour Williams has just been starting with signs that we know about $100,000 imprisonment, but based on the number of reports we can get from child abuse, in comparison to that, how often is the law actually implemented? How many persons have been signed, or is there as a result of these cases?
You want to answer?
And in relation to the line, the helpline, I wanted to know if you have enough staff available to receive these reports. And let me outline how many reports there have been so far this year. Do you have adequate staffing? And also, should someone call, a child call, and you can hear that they're in danger of parents and they're unable to speak on the line, is there a way to track to find where that child is going to be assistance?
How many persons are actually in charge for not reporting?
Okay, all right, thank you for that question. Krista, we did not hear the first question clearly. So can you repeat the first question for us, please? And the second question, I believe you were asking if we have enough operators to man the 211 line. And in the event that there is an emergency, how do we track that call if the person was not clear as to where they are? Is that correct?
Yes, you're correct. We'll find out 2 questions, but the first question is anyone who can answer about the teeth of the law. How much teeth does the law have in terms of imprisoning persons or penalizing persons who have been found to either fail to report cases of child abuse or persons who are actually abusing their children?
Okay, so we're going to ask Mrs. Rosalie Gage Gray to take your questions. She'll respond now.
Thanks, Christoph, for the question. So the Child Care and Protection Act and the provisions there allows for criminal prosecution to be done whenever there is a breach in any of the provisions, whether it is that somebody has abused a child and we can take that before the court through CISOCA primarily, or that we have seen where, say, a parent who did not report that a child has been abused in their care have been prosecuted. We don't have those statistics. Those statistics we usually get from the police, but we have seen in the past where persons have been charged for not reporting, especially when it's a family situation. So I think the law is strong enough to be able to for action to be taken against persons who don't report, especially persons very close to the children. As you know, we have prescribed persons, the law prescribes certain persons. So your health professionals, your doctors, nurses, you have our teachers, people in the education sector, or social workers have a duty of care to report because they come in direct contact with children across. With respect to the question of whether or not we have enough personnel to respond, so we are building out a 24-hour call center that is operational now, and we have been able to field those calls that have been coming into that center. In addition, as we said before, we have officers in all 14 parishes, and we have investigators in the fields. Now, all our investigators and our social workers are on call 24 hours. And so what we have done to streamline that process is to roster officers who are on call after their regular hours and also on weekends. And so the police knows those persons who are on call, and all of us as executive of the agency do respond as well. So once the call comes into the center, then it is almost immediately referred to an investigator, especially if the risk profile is very high. So we have been able to respond, but we are building out, as we said, with support from TIU, that's the Transformation Unit, who have been helping us to build out the ICT infrastructure within the agency. So we are well on our way to have that fully operational, but we do have sufficient officers now who are responding on a 24-hour basis to the calls.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Rosalie Gage Gray. Krista, I hope that answered your question. Is there anybody else that has a question on Zoom? Anyone else? We have any questions in, I don't think we have any questions in the chat. We do. Krista has another question?
Yes, Debbie, thanks for facilitating. So I don't know if Dr. can answer this or Mrs. Gage Gray. It's in relation to the increasing issues as a result of the pandemic, with the toll it's been taking on our children. I want to know if you've seen any increase in suicidal tendencies among our children, and just how we treat with the different psychological issues that our children are facing as a result of this prolonged pandemic.
I'm sorry, Krista, I'm going to have to ask you to just repeat your question for me. It's very distorted and it's coming, the audio is going in and out, so we're not hearing you clearly. The question is about
the pandemic and if we are seeing increase in suicide.
Okay.
Right.
All right, you want to take this one as well?
I think Dr. Morgan, you
Dr.
will take
Morgan
that.
Is here? Okay.
We as I said, the numbers in terms of absolute numbers have not increased, but we are seeing where younger children are presenting with are being abused, those under 12. But as you would well imagine, the pandemic with schools being shuttered, and so we have our children who are not in their usual places, of enjoyment, and school would have been experiencing. But Dr. Morgan can better address the psychosocial issues there.
So I would agree with what Mrs. Gage-Gray just highlighted. So a number of other issues have come up with the pandemic, So on one hand, we do have, and we did in the beginning stages, I think especially, have an increase in some of these reports of abuse, because again, there are safe spaces which sometimes is school for a lot of children were no longer available, right? We also though saw in some spaces an improvement in their attendance to like counseling sessions, because they could use other methods rather than face-to-face, and sometimes that is challenging for the children and the families that we serve. So for them to be able to do a phone session or come online or things like that was actually helped to improve their adherence to the counseling sessions. So there's those two things juxtaposed against each other. I think you mentioned something about suicide. It was a little unclear as Debbie was saying, but I think I heard you saying something about the increase in suicide. I'm not aware of those numbers of any increase in the adolescent or the child and adolescent population during the pandemic. So I'm not sure about those numbers. Was that everything, Crystal? Did I miss anything?
I think just the major psychological issues that our children are facing as a result of the prolonged pandemic, really.
As a result of the pandemic, anxiety is number one, right? But what we also find is that anxiety and also the pandemic, just the advent of the pandemic exacerbates issues that are already there. So even if you usually, maybe the anxiety was mild and you were managing it a little bit better, that it was exacerbated by the pandemic, by being shut away, by being, all these different things that were happening. The fear, some children have become quite fearful of death. So the issue of death and their mortality has come up a little bit more as people begin to pass around them from COVID. So, they're worried about talking about it, asking questions a lot of their parents about death, things like that, and caregivers. So those things, I think, have been on the rise. Anxiety often leads to depression. So we see that a lot. So you're anxious for a long time and it is difficult to control, and you don't have the means and the resources to control it. Then it turns into depression after a while, or addition of depression, because then it feels futile. It feels like there's no hope down the road and what is going to happen. So those issues, I think, would also be very pertinent within the pandemic so far.
Thank you, Dr. Kai Morgan there for answering. Krista, I hope that answered your question. We're going to move to Paige Dixon. She's from CVM. She asked a question through message right here. She says there's a 3-year-old who was abused in Bog Walk recently. Are there any updates? Mrs. Gage-Gray, would you like to comment on that? Yes.
Right, so our officers, along with the police, did respond to that situation. We understand that the perpetrator has been arrested, and we are continuing to provide support to the child and her family. So we did intervene in that situation there, and a release was sent.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Gage-Gray. We see Brittany Hutchinson. Her hand is up. Hi, Brittany.
Hi, good. So I'm from the today, or has it been in operation launched today? Because I know that staff members would have already been operating the lines over the 14 parishes, so I wanted to make that clear. And also, as it relates to the campaign, will it be maybe just awareness through the social media page, yes, and stuff like that?
Okay, Mrs. Gage-Gray, want to take this one as well?
So the number has been active since around about June, And so the number, if you call, you can get through on any from any of the networks. So that the number is live and active. Staff have been trained and have been using it. So it is live and working. It will eventually replace the 88 Protect. So we are phasing out 88 Protect, and 211 would be the main number. And it facilitates us getting multiple calls on the line, and it can be routed to any of our offices across the island. So if a call comes through at Central, it can be routed to other areas. And so the response time would be, I think, almost real time in some cases.
Okay. Thank you, Brittany.
Wait, just a follow-up question. If it has been in operation since June, would you be able to tell me how many calls you have received so far, or a rough estimate?
Wouldn't be able to give you that response right now, but that's one of the things that Minister Morgan has asked us to track, and so we are tracking those numbers. But I don't have those numbers right now. We could get that for you.
All right. All right. Thank you, Brittany. All right, we see Asha Wilkes, who is online with us. Hi, Asha. Can you just tell us which media entity you are representing?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm from the Gleaner country. So I wanted to find out, are there any mental health interventions that will be implemented alongside this launch to help children through this emotionally challenging experience?
So as a part of our protocol and a part of the response mechanism is that once the reports are received by the Children's Registry, they are required to assess those reports and then refer them for investigation. They are referred to either the investigation arm of the CPFSA or to the Office of the Children's Advocate. Once our investigators get those cases, they do a risk assessment on the cases, and officers are assigned to respond in the field. Based on what is confirmed when they do those investigations, and the intervention could include psychosocial support, it could include other types of support. So yes, there is a team working behind the investigators and the registration officers who collect those reports to have the intervention. One of the things that we'll be doing, as we said, is to assign officers on a roster basis to respond in cases of emergency. What we have done in the past, for example, a child would call on the line or would send us a message, and we have an officer who would be speaking to that child whilst another is trying to get to the location. So we usually, in those cases, especially if a child is suicidal, we have the specialists on the line with the child whilst the other officer is physically getting to the location, or we would report to the police. Okay. Either way, we would get to the location. So we have that provision in place, and that would be strengthened because, as you know, once if children are calling and need that support, then we need to get to them. And our officers are trained and are available 24 hours to make those responses.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Gage Gray. I hope that answers your question. In the interest of time, we can only accommodate one more question. Are there anybody else? Is there anybody else there waiting? No? All right. If no, we'd like to thank everyone. Thank you to Mrs. Rosalie Gage Gray, Chief Executive Officer for the Child Protection and Family Services Agency. Thank you to Dr. Kai Morgan, child psychologist. Thanks to the Honorable Robert Nesta Morgan, MP, Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. The Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information. The 211 campaign will run for 6 to 12 months. The first phase of the campaign begins today and ends in December. During this period, you will see ads on social media, on television, and in the newspapers as well. There will also be billboards and signs across the island, and our team of ambassadors will be on the ground educating the public about the hotline. All updates and information are available on the Child Protection and Family Services Agency's media pages. That's at CPFSAJM on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again to all our partners: Access Financial Services, JN Bank, ISA Printing Solutions, NOA, iPrint Digital, Global Media Services, Digicel, Trend Media, Master Distribution, and also Flow. Thank you all for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, again, as I bid you farewell, please remember to report child abuse. Call 211. Thank you for joining us here today. Have a safe afternoon.
Since the start of the year, there have been 600 reports of emotional abuse, 1,203 reports of sexual abuse, 1,465 reports of physical abuse, 2,528 reports of neglect. Stop sexual abuse. Stop physical abuse. Stop emotional abuse. Stop child neglect. Report child abuse. Call 211.
Driver is showing some obscure driving, possibly intoxicated. Currently doing 45 miles an hour. Zone through here is 25. Oh! Subject just hit the curb. Correction, speed limit is 15. I'm about 3/4 of a mile into the arches, just before the gate. You want to place your vehicle into park and go ahead and turn it off for me?
Yeah,
No, park?
Oh, it is in park, yeah.
Okay, turn off your engine. Go ahead and set your keys on the dash for me, alright? What's your guys' names?
Gabby. I'm Brian.
Gabby, Brian? Okay. What's going on? How come you're crying?
I'm just sorry. We've just been fighting this morning. Some personal issues.
It was a long day. We were camping yesterday, and camping got the stuff, flies and stuff. I'm sorry I hit the bump there.
I was distracting him from driving. I'm sorry.
Can I get you to step out of the vehicle for me, man?
Yeah.
Just hang tight right there. Do you mind if I take your keys and just put them on your hood?
You got it, buddy. I'm so
Thank
sorry.
you. Oh, no, you're fine. I'm going to go ahead and close your door. Okay? Why don't you come over here? SO229. I have the female that was on the passenger seat separated from the male. Keys are on the hood. You want to tell me what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just some days I have really bad OCD, and I was just cleaning and straightening up the back of the van before, and I was apologizing to him and saying, I'm sorry that I'm so mean, because sometimes I have OCD and sometimes I just get really frustrated. Not like mean towards him, I just like, I guess my vibe is like, I hear him be like in a bad mood. And I was just saying, I'm sorry if I'm in a bad mood. I've just been really stressed. I had so much work I was doing on my computer this morning.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to work at an organic juice bar, but I just quit my job.
Okay.
I was a nutritionist. That was my
That's
job.
cool.
And I just quit my job to travel across the country. And I'm trying to start a blog. I have a blog and stuff. So I've been building my website. So I've just been really stressed, and he doesn't really believe that I could do any of it. So that's kind of been like a, I don't know, he's like down there. I don't know, we've just been fighting all morning, and he wouldn't let me in the car before. And then
Why wouldn't he let you in the car? Because of
told me
your OCD?
He told me I needed to calm down. Yeah. But I'm perfectly calm. I'm calm all the time, and he really stresses me out, and this is a rough morning.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't I sit you down in the back seat of my car? You're not in any trouble, okay? I'm not going to be putting handcuffs on you. You obviously don't have any weapons. I'm going to get you into the air conditioning, let you take a breath, relax a little bit, and then I'll come back and talk to you in a few minutes, okay?
Okay.
Alrighty. Like I said, you're not in any trouble. So just go ahead and take a seat. Watch your feet. What's that?
You talked to Gabrielle, right?
Yeah, I just spoke to her.
Yeah.
So, you want to do me a favor? Let's go ahead and get you to step out of the vehicle, alrighty? Come on over here. You're not in any trouble right now. So, tell me what's going on.
She just gets worked up sometimes, and I try and really distance myself from her, so like I locked the car and I walked away from her. What happened this morning is that she's trying to start up like her own little website blog and everything, so I give her time, and we really had a nice morning, if anything, but she just got worked up because we were trying to get going and get our day going because we want to go like arches before this stuff every time.
Okay. You want to tell me about those scratches on your face?
She had a cell phone in her hand, that's why I was pushing her away, because she wanted I locked the keys so I could walk away. I said, let's just take a breather and let's not, go anywhere. Let's just calm down for a minute because she was getting a little worked up. And then she had her phone and was trying to get the keys from me, so I got in the way. I was just trying to, I know I shouldn't push, but I was just trying to push her away to go, let's just take a minute, step back and breathe. And she got me with her phone.
Can I see your hand? Oh, you got a mark right here.
Oh, that's from a wire.
That's from a wire?
Yeah.
You want to tell me about hitting that curb?
Hitting the curb was her grabbing the wheel.
She grabbed the wheel?
Yeah. She said, I can't believe we're getting pulled over, and then she grabbed the wheel.
What about the speed? Did she take over the pedal on you?
If I was going fast, I'm sorry. No, it's probably just the moment of like, I'm still shaking now. The adrenaline, seeing the lights flashing up, and then her gripping the wheel. So if I sped up, I'm sorry about that. Or if I was speeding beforehand, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, it took quite a bit to catch up to you. So,
yeah. I'm sorry about that. We're just going into the park again to get water because we have a 6-gallon water container to fill up. So we're just grabbing water for the hike. Okay. And I was trying to keep everything calm and quiet because there's plans still to go for a hike, but it's good. I'm really sorry about that.
Of course. Do me a favor. You want to go ahead and just take a seat right over here on the curb for me?
And if I was speeding, I'm sorry. I apologize.
You don't have anything in that pocket or anything like that, do you?
Nope.
Just the wallet? All right. And then, do you mind lifting your shirt so I can check your waistband? Turn around for me real quick. Perfect.
Nothing.
I just want to make sure. That's all, man. Go ahead, do me a favor, take a seat, all right? Oh, do you have your ID on you?
In the car, if you want to come with me.
No, we'll just do this. Just go ahead and take a seat.
You can come with me, I'll give it to you.
No, you're fine. What's your first name?
Brian.
Brian? Is that layman spelling?
B-R-I-N, yeah, and L-A-U-N.
And then your last name?
L-A-U-N.
L-A-U-N.
D-R-I-E.
D-R-I-E?
Yep.
Laundry? Okay. What's your date of birth, Brian?
I'll say crisscross applesauce, but can I just sit in the shade because I'm bald? It's okay. I'll give you some shade. Sound good?
Alrighty, just hang tight for me. SO229. I need a 29 name and date of birth. First name Brian, layman spellings, last name Laundry, Lima Alpha Uniform, November, Delta, Romeo, India.
Where'd you hit him? You slapped him first? It's on his face? How many times did you slap?
Bravo, Romeo, India, Alpha, November.
And then what? And his reaction was to do what?
It's going to be out of Florida.
He just grabbed you? Did he hit you though? I mean, it's okay if you're saying you hit him, but then I understand if he hit you, but we want to know the truth if he actually hit you. Because, you know, where did he hit you? Don't worry, just be honest. You slapped your face or what? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So has he been drinking?
No, we don't drink.
Okay. What was up with his driving? This officer said he hit a curb. While you're driving? While he was driving, you were hitting him?
I'm not. Come on, I kind of like.
Did you already tell him all this?
I didn't get that far into
Okay,
it.
so
She was hyperventilating a
she's
little
saying
bit.
that they don't drink, but at the point when you let them up,
You don't drink or anything.
She started hitting him.
Yeah, I was yelling at him, and then when you turned your lights on, I kind of punched his arm like there's no.
she's saying like hit the curb. You said it was Gabby?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I remember that name. It was Gabby?
Yeah.
Try to meditate and stuff, but you tend to have a lot of anxiety and stress.
I have a lot of anxiety.
And what's his name? Is it Brian? Is he usually pretty patient with you?
Yeah, but it just makes me upset. I know that he definitely gets frustrated with me a lot.
Way of taking my anxiety and bringing it down, but my ex-wife, as much as my ex-wife, I'm just sharing, I know it's a little personal, but to help you understand, we would feed off each other's anxiety and spiral, you know what I mean? And it doesn't matter how much I loved her. It may be bad for your soul, just saying. I'm not telling you what to do with your life, but if you know you have anxiety, look at the situations you can get in, you know what I mean? And we're not here to be mean to you or anything. Well, you know, there's a first time and then it usually... We'll go see what Brian's saying, but I think you've heard everything now from...
Quick question, you said you were hitting him in the arm. Did you grab the steering wheel?
No, I didn't.
You did not touch the
I
steering
didn't
wheel?
touch the steering wheel, but only for like a second, because I just saw the lights come on, and it was more just like you're an idiot. Like, you know.
But did you grab the steering wheel and like
No.
swerve or anything like that?
No. I didn't touch the steering wheel at all.
I'm going to go ahead and close this door again. Do you have enough air back here, or do you want me to kick it up some more?
Do you have any water?
I will see if I can find some.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
Okay, Mom. You wouldn't happen to have any water, would you? Can I get a bottle?
Did you already give a statement for this officer? I've got this gentleman here. This gentleman noticed that you had some marks on your hand. And she's got some marks on her too. We're just trying to figure out what all happened. And I know you probably already told your story. This officer's probably going to be the one handling the whole case. You want to listen to what he has to say, and then you tell him what happened.
Start at the beginning for me.
Start at the beginning. Well, I don't want to go too far back, but we've been in Beyond Land for the past week or so, traveling around. And the flies here are pretty intense, so the flies have definitely been getting to her. And then my feet are dirty and everything, so I think that our little squabble started because we were hanging out at the coffee shop, and when we got back to the van, there was some dirt and stuff in the van, and I moved our food around just a little bit, so she gets a little...
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Do you need any water?
That's okay.
It's hot out
I
here.
was we were going to get water because we ran out, but it's okay. No, it's okay. I don't like plastic bottles. It's okay. Thank you. But we just had a little disagreement there. And the disagreement was just that she was getting a little worked up, and I was saying, "Oh, it's okay. Thank you." It's okay.
As long as it's cold, that's good.
So it was just more of a disagreement, and I just wanted to.
What was the disagreement about?
It was. I wouldn't even call it disagreement. It was just that I'm dirty and I can't change being dirty. Like I got dirty feet, I got sand on my cuffs and stuff like that. It was that we were at the coffee shop for so long because we were there from 9 to 3. So I guess there's a few little things, this little relationship. I don't know if you're in a relationship.
I've been married for over 5 years now. So.
There's a lot of little things.
Yeah, I can go
and we really we weren't physical before the point where I said, all right, let's just take a breather and like walk away for a minute. I'll lock the van up and I'll go for a walk this way, and you can go walk down that way in the block. You know, there's that what is it called, Moonflower?
Right,
yeah. You know, nice areas. You can go either way. It's all shaded. So let's go for a little walk and breathe and come back. Because we're happy with it. I'm not upset with her. She got a little worked up and she had her phone in her hand and her keys and everything. And she wanted, not her keys, like her rings. She had her rings, her phone. And I was holding on to the keys because I didn't want to go anywhere. And my big fear is, I don't have my phone. I don't have a phone. So she goes off without me. I'm on my own. So I was saying, let's just go for a walk, and she was trying to get the keys for me, so I was just going, just wait back up, and that's when she hit me, and I didn't get, I don't want to push you, but I didn't get overtly physical. I was just trying to keep her away and not get hit, and then I got really loud, and like that's probably whoever's attention where I was going, back up, get away, just give me a...
Okay, so you said you pushed her to create some distance, obviously, right? What happened after that? What got the scratches on your eye?
The phone.
The phone? So you pushed her and she hit you?
She was, I wasn't like a push and she jumped on me. She was already, I don't want to, she was already swinging and I was multiple. A lot of angles, a lot of nails, a lot of rings.
Yeah, you got 3 scratches on your neck. You got one on the left side of your nose. You got one in your face here, and you got 4 bleeding over there. So it looks like 2 hands coming in.
Do you mind lifting up your right sleeve for me? I'm curious about something.
It's a little bit of nails. I suppose fingernails, but I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining about
Is it bruised or tender or anything like
that?
that?
No. Okay. I'm fine, and I love Gabby. I hope she doesn't have too many complaints about me. I'm just, I feel bad I had to get so public. I was just trying to be loud to listen. This is, try to make her calm down and be like, look, everyone's watching. And like, stop this.
Just hang tight for me. I got a quick question for you, Ryan. Sure. Do you take any medications or anything like that?